Continuing coverage of Ball State Cardinals athletics, we are joined by the athletics director, Beth Goetz, and it's been an interesting week, Beth, I know for you. So I guess give me the inside scoop from that standpoint. What have the last couple of days been like for an AD in college athletics?
Yeah, it's obviously we were together, 6 months ago having a similar conversation, and I don't think any of us certainly thought we'd be sitting here today. But these conversations we've been having with our medical advisors, both on campus with the Mid-American Conference and beyond, have been certainly regular for the last couple weeks, and I think it became clear that we were reaching a decision point. So, when that moment comes, it's certainly disappointing. And hard news to deliver, but it had been heading that direction just based on the information we'd received.
Let's dive into the specifics of that. John Steinbrecher said on Saturday, his quote was, "There are simply too many unknowns to put our student athletes in these situations." From a leadership standpoint, what were those unknowns? What were the things that had you guys uneasy?
Yeah, and really we're taking all of our guidance from our medical advisors, but there's a long list of those, and we get new information every day. But I think certainly access to testing, what the turnaround time would be, how quickly can you get those back. I think that's certainly one of the open questions that continue to exist, as well as some of the other protocols, contact tracing you have to have in place. I think we felt like we could get a pretty good handle on those items on your own campus, but now you add in the complexities of traveling from one region to the other. And I think really the thing that really caused the most concern is the biggest unknown, which is what is the long-term effect of this on our young men and women. And so some of the recent research, and certainly we've heard now of some stories across the country of young people having those ongoing cardiac issues, and that just became a situation that we weren't willing to put our student athletes in.
Was that one of the biggest drivers for you ultimately, was the uncertainty with what we don't know and what this ultimately could mean long term?
Yeah, I certainly can't speak for everyone, but when you start to hear that again and again from our medical advisors, that certainly sticks with you. And so, I think as that became clear, just that we weren't in a position to predict what that would mean. And even though we could put some precautions in place, I just think they felt it was, too much for us to take on at this point in time.
Where did the travel factor into it, and the exposing teams to other teams, other schools, other states, other campuses? Because obviously there's still going to be some situations potentially where teams will be able to practice and have athletic activities. What you've really removed is the competition part of it. So where's the line that you guys felt comfortable with in terms of what is safe going forward for them?
Yeah, so I think right now, and everybody's handling this differently on their campuses, even within the Mid-American Conference to date. So, we've actually been very restrictive in terms of the types of contact we've allowed. So, we've done minimal activities in which there was that level of engagement between our athletes. But I think, following the NCAA, which were guidelines and now mandated protocols with testing, I think most of our medical advisors all felt pretty comfortable that we can create that environment on our campus that would allow for that testing, for the daily screening protocols, and then whether or not you have a modified training session, which I still think is possible, certainly for us, not just full practice necessarily, but that we could create an environment that would certainly let them continue to lift weights, condition, and practice some or most components of their sport.
And it's easier to do workouts in smaller groups than it is to do practice in smaller groups, so that limits contact touch points there, I guess, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think about football, you can do a one-on-one drill, which still may have minimal contact, and you can even play 7v7. You want to get all the, both teams lined up on the field together, and now you're talking about something completely different. So there's complexities, but I tell you, our coaches have just been incredibly creative and nimble, and they will find a way to train in a safe environment if you give them the protocols. And so appreciative of how they managed that during that time, and certainly how I know they will approach it in the coming months.
Walk me through how this was all decided upon and what the last couple of weeks have been like for you. Because I was at football practice Friday, and I said to Mike, you felt like there was this giant sword of Damocles just hanging over the stadium. I guess the age-old question is, what did you know and when did you know it? How did it all fit together that way?
Sure. Well, I know on our campus we've tried to be very collaborative and transparent with our head coaches, and so we have let them know when decision timelines are coming, whether that was meetings that were occurring at the NCA or at the MAC office, or certainly with the president's groups as they occurred this past weekend. So they certainly knew what the context of those discussions might be and what the potential outcomes were. And I think, as we all got closer and closer to camp, obviously we'd already made some decisions about delaying the start of the season. I think the level of anxiety around, hey, is this really going to happen for us, or is there going to come a point while you're out there on the practice field where the direction's going to change again? And unfortunately, that's what we reached on Saturday morning.
What was the planning for all of this like from an administrative standpoint? A lot of people on Twitter have said, well, like, there have been 5 months for this. Why is this all happening now? What was the layout for you guys looking at options coming into this, and as things developed? I'm sure where you thought you would be in May was different than June, was different than July, was different than almost September.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just the hopeful nature of sports in general, right? You're down 2 touchdowns with 2 minutes left, and we truly believe we've got a chance to put it in the end zone. But I think we were doing this thinking, hey, you're 100 days out, you're 60 days out, and hoping that you would navigate. But there have been ongoing conversations and planning, multiple plans, and those involve working groups on your own campuses that have been put together, different versions, and they're revised because the information you get is new. And so, in many ways, one of the benefits that comes from times of crisis is just the collaboration and opportunity to really engage differently with people you work with. And I can't tell you the number of hours we've spent on Mid-American calls with our peers there, certainly in working groups, even within our own department, including our head coaches and our medical staff, and engaging with our campus about what this looks like for our general student body, not to mention our student athletes. So, it really has been overwhelming to try and continue to put together these plans, and then you got to be ready the next day to make adjustments.
There's a perception, I think, that a lot of people say, sports are going forward until the university presidents get involved. But the university president, in Ball State University's case, is a former Division I or former very high-level athlete. So, he's one of us, so to speak. What were your conversations like with President Mearns, and what was his outlook on all of this, trying to create a situation where players could hopefully play?
Yeah, we're certainly fortunate in so many ways to have President Mearns' leadership on our campus. And whether he was a former Division I elite level athlete or not, I truly believe he would have been hand in hand through this process with us anyway. But he's been involved in every conversation with us and the Mid-American Conference. I know he believes that the importance of participating in college athletics does enhance the educational experience overall, and in this time he thinks that's even more critically important. We know that participating is important for mental health. We know that athletes have been in a very structured environment since the time they first started, when they were 10 and 12 years old, and so believe that it's important that if we could find a way to safely allow for them to compete, that's what our goal was, and now is our goal in terms of practice as well. So he's been extremely supportive, always keeping the priority certainly on their health and safety, but understanding why this is so important for our students.
Looking forward, there are people that say, well, you can't play in the spring. I said to Coach New, Major League Baseball started the season without knowing where one of their teams was going to play, so I think you can do anything, really, at this point. What is the plan for you going forward to the spring, and what are the things you're looking at and concerned about that are benefits or that are hurdles that maybe the layman at home doesn't necessarily think about that you might see?
Yeah. Well, I think until we have exhausted all possibilities in conversation or in effort, I don't think you take anything off the table. I think we owe it to our students and to our coaches and to our community, frankly, to exhaust all possibilities and see what we can provide for everybody involved. And so, as a part of that process, I think you got to look at each sport differently in some ways. Certainly the load we talk about in football, in terms of competitive, how many times can you hit in a given year, that's a different factor that may not exist the same way in volleyball. But within that context, I think you have to figure out, what are the windows of time that are available for teams to train. You have to make some assumptions, and you'll probably have several different versions. Are we still in this moment with COVID where we're requiring acclimation periods that are different and regular testing? We've got to look at what the operational side of this is.
What do you need to see going forward, talking about potential spring seasons or even winter seasons with those sports still on the table? What has to change to make you guys comfortable as a school, as a league, to get back out there in something that would resemble normalcy?
Yeah, I could list some of these things around testing, but at the end of the day, our medical providers have to tell us that they feel we can move forward in a way that we can mitigate enough risk for our student athletes. And so that's probably the simplest way to say that. And I do think we're continuing to see advances in how testing is done and how treatments are done, and certainly we're all hopeful there'll be vaccines not too far in the future. But I think all those factors certainly will play in. I think the process the Mid-American Conference has used, the collaborative, thoughtful process that we use to come to this decision about fall sports, is the same one we'll embark on now as the winter seasons approach.
How key does all of this, all of the things outside of sports become now? I know you guys pride yourselves a lot on the personal development of the student athletes as opposed to just the athletic development. What are the types of things that you focus on now departmentally to take care of mental health of student athletes, but also occupy time that they've never had before, maybe in their lives because they're used to competing all the time, to best use this to their advantage?
Yeah, and that's really the key. In any moment of crisis, you certainly have to deal with the issue at hand, but there is an opportunity that exists. And I think taking a broader view of how we can impact them is really a part of that. So, we've been really fortunate to this summer even start to pilot some of the things that we think we can do to support them around their professional growth and leadership abilities. So we've partnered with some programming as one of our donors, Dan Towers, through Cambridge, has provided, and that's allowing us to give them some career development sessions and a whole range of, whether it's how to prepare your social media, to how to network, those types of issues that we can really have them spend some time on. And it's not just those that they would get normally, which is great through services through the Career Center, but how do those intersect with your experience as a student athlete? There's a different layer to that. How can they articulate the experiences and the skill set to an employer that they have based on their education and what makes it unique based on their experience as a student athlete? So certainly that piece is really important. It's very important and dear to our hearts, and our student athletes are committed to also promoting certainly the awareness around mental health, which is relevant for them even more so during these COVID times. But also they are committed to being a part of taking action in and around the fight against social injustice. And so this is, again, not that we wouldn't have been committed to those before, but there is an opportunity here to really dive in and help them use their platform to the best of their ability.
I want to end on that note. There's been a lot of movement around hashtag Conference United. There was a MAC United statement that came out over the last couple of days as well. To get your thoughts on the voice of student athletes going forward, both in what you foresee as what that could potentially be and also what it is now, because I think one of the things that people don't see, particularly in this conference, is there is already a lot of input, but what is the direction of that going forward, and how could we potentially see that grow and or change?
Yeah, I think in any moment this is what we do. As educators, we should support and encourage our students to always use their platform to voice what they are concerned about, what they believe in, what they're passionate about, and I think it's our role to help them do that. I think the Mid-American Conference has done a great job of including student athletes in our governance process. I believe we are doing that here on our campus as well, but we can do better. And where that leads, I think is still an open question, but us finding ways to truly engage them, make sure it's not just one voice, but it's all voices from different perspectives. And I think if we truly have that conversation, it's going to lead us to better decisions long term for all of our students.
Beth, I know it's been an interesting couple of days. I know it will be an interesting couple of days, weeks, months going forward. So I appreciate you taking some time and sitting down, and we'll see where this all takes us.
Yeah. Thanks, Joel.